Before we continue the Maimer Ki Sisa, the last part of how the Rebbe explains it, just to give a small Hagdama, a general Maimer Amuzgar, sort of. The concepts that we're going to learn now is ideas, very deep ideas in the concepts of Chassidus, in the difference between a Yid and a Goy, the Emunah of a Yid and the Emunah of a Goy. We're going to try and give over at least the point of it, but with this Akdama, that the main difference between Kabbalah and Chassidus. In Kabbalah, we learn about the ideas, the deep ideas of Elokos. In Chassidus, the point of everything is Maaseh B'Poel, how it leads to something in practical life. There's a story that the Rebbe tells very often, that there were two people who wrote letters to the Frierdiker Rebbe. One was a big maskil in Chassidus, and he asked a very deep question about inyanim of Chassidus, of Kabbalah, inyanim that had to do with Malachim, etc. Another one asked about a practical question in Avodah B'Poel. The Frierdiker Rebbe answered the second one and didn't answer the first one. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explained to the Rebbe that the purpose of my neshama coming into this world is not in order to enhance this first person's knowledge of deep concepts. My purpose is in order to enhance Avodah B'Poel, practical Avodah. Chassidus takes all the deepest ideas, but the point of it all is to take it into practical and that it should affect us in practical Avodah. Now in Chassidus we explain the difference between the emunah of a Goy in the way of Memali Kol Almin and of a Yid in the way of Seviv Kol Almin. And the Rebbe continues more to say that even when the Jew's emunah is in the way of Memali Kol Almin, which means there's one level in the emunah of a Jew that comes from a knowledge and an understanding that he realizes based on understanding, based on intellectual proofs that there must be, that there's an Eibishter that runs the world. And yet the Rebbe explains that's like the difference between Asiya in Atzilus and Asiya in Asiya. That means that both in Atzilus, in every world, we know that there's all four worlds. In the world of Atzilus, which is a world of Elokos, there's a world of Asiya. Part of Atzilus, in Atzilus, there's Asiya Shabbatzilus, the level of Asiya in Atzilus. And then there's Asiya Sheba Asiya. They're both Asiya. Both of them are Asiya, means the practical world. And yet the difference is unimaginable. That's why there's a parsa, a curtain between Atzilus and Asiya. The Asiya which is in Atzilus is Elokos. The Asiya which is in Asiya is Asiya's physical world. Similar to a mashal which is given by Chassidim, that if one looks at the bottom of a horse's foot, he'll see a horseshoe, which is a half circle. It looks like the moon. You look up in the sky, you see the moon. Yet is there any comparison between this moon and this moon? And in the same way, when a Jew has a moon in a way of Memalik Kol Almin and a Goy has a moon, this moon is the same, but we say, no, this is the way it's in a Jew, and this is the way it's in a Goy. What's the difference? So we explain what's the difference between the Emunah in Memali Kol Almin and the Emunah in a way of Seviv Kol Almin. The concept of Memali Kol Almin means how Hashem sustains the world in a way of Dibur, of speech. What is speech? Speech is something which one speaks for another person. You don't speak for yourself. Even if a person talks to himself, he's talking to himself as if he's another person. That's why sometimes a person, when you want to understand something, you'll speak to yourself in a way of explaining it, but you're speaking to yourself as if you're someone else. Speech is made for someone else. That's the purpose of speech. That's Memalik Kol Almin. Memalik Kol Almin means the speech, the way the world is a separate entity from Hashem, and that's why in Dibur there's also hefsek, there's interruptions. Dibur doesn't constantly happen. There's a time of speech and there's a time when a person isn't speaking. which means it's not something which is constant. There's no constancy in that idea. That's the way the Eibishter fulfills the world and sustains the world in a way of Mamalik Almin. And in this idea, it's called Ir Elikeinu. Ir Elikeinu means a city is just like one builds a city from a lot of houses together. Each house is built with a lot of bricks, and a lot of bricks make a house, and then a lot of houses make a city. That's the idea of Dibur, because speech comes from a lot of words. Each word is like a house. It's made up of a few letters together, which a few letters create a house, which is something that one can live in. Just a block you can't live in. A house is a lot of blocks you could live in. And a few bricks together, when there's a few letters together, it makes a word, something which a light can come into it. A few words together is Ir Elikeinu, that's Dibur. But that's Elikim that comes from Shem Elikim. That's when we don't have the connection, when we don't feel the godliness, when we feel the world, but the fact that the world is being sustained by Hashem. Whereas machshava means thought. Thought is something when a person thinks, you think for yourself. And not only that, thought is something which is constant, it never stops. You never stop thinking. And it's the same idea, Seviv Kalalman is machshava, that is godliness itself. That's the Eibishter himself above the world. That's the light of Hashem, not for something else, and something which has a constancy in it which never stops. That is the difference between Memalikom, which is from Shem Elikim, that therefore it comes in a way of Ischalkos, it's separation, it's Ir Elikeinu, there's differences, there's pluralism, it's not one, it's a lot of different aspects in it. It's a world with different aspects, it's a world that's separate, it's a world that isn't constant. And Machshava, which is Shem Havaya, is one which is Elam Ma'achtas, where it's totally one, where it's totally the oneness, and it's totally Hashem, and there's no stops in it. It's constant. There's a constancy in it. Now the sheiresh of a guy comes from Shem Elikim. That's what he's connected to. The sheiresh of a Jew comes from Shem Havaya, Yisrael Olam Machshava. The essence of the neshama of a Jew has to do with Machshava, the thought of Hashem, which means he's one with Hashem. So even when a Jew's connection is in a way of Memali Kol Almin, even when a Jew's connection is because he understands it, because he makes sense, he's connecting to Shem Elikim, but yet his source and his reality is from Shem Havaya. And therefore, even when the Jew's connection comes in a way of Shem Elikim, yet even that Shem Elikim through Moshe Rabbeinu is revealed in its source, that he connects to the real essence of who he is, which is a Jew that's connected to Lukus, which is above the world. And certainly when he has that higher connection, which comes from Seviv Kol Almin, which is Emunah, the idea of Ma'aminim, and even more than that, because Yisrael Olu b'machshava means they come up in the machshava of Hashem, means that a Jew, the soul of a Jew is even higher than machshava, because it comes from the essence, from Atzma Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which that's the idea of B'nei Ma'aminim, Atzma Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the essence of a Jew, the way it's connected to Hashem. That's the concept of the different types of emunah. And this is the emunah of a Jew. This is the reality of a Jew. The reality of a Jew, even if he has to deal with understanding, even if for the reason of where he is, he has to deal with Memalik Alman, but his real essence is from Seviv Kol Alman, and even higher from the essence of Hashem. And this is the reason why, the halacha, we say that there's a difference between a Jew and a guy regarding the Aveda, the Isra of Shituf. Shituf means that it says Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. For a Jew, he's not allowed to have anything together with the Eibishter. There can't be, it's only the Eibishter and there's nothing else. A guy is allowed to have Shituf. As long as he believes that Hashem is the one in charge, there's no Isser for a guy, the meaning of Shituf. And the question that's asked in Chassidus is Manavshach. If Shituf is wrong, which Itaki is wrong, that Chas v'Shalom to say that there's anything else even together with the Eibishter is only Hashem. So why for a guy is it all right? And the answer is because that's what he's connected to. A guy can't connect to anything higher, to the realization of Echad, Only a Jew can connect to that, and therefore for a Jew, that's the reality, and that's the only reality it can be. And therefore a Jew, no matter where he is, that's the reality. But who reveals this? Moshe Rabbeinu reveals it. Moshe Rabbeinu reveals it in a Jew, both in the essence of the Gilui of Atzmas Ein Sof that Moshe Rabbeinu reveals in the Jew, and also in the revelation that even in Seviv Kol Almin, and even in Memalik Kol Almin, that Moshe Rabbeinu brings into the Jew the realization and the connection that it's one, and like it was in the Maimer Veila Mishpatim Kisikne, Eved Ivri, since this is what it's really about, Moshe reveals that which is hidden, because Moshe himself, Moshe Rabbeinu, is connected to that Etzen. Moshe comes from Shemitah Rishayna, Min Hamayim Mishisu, and therefore he can reveal in a Jew the real essence of his connection to Lukus in a way of Atzmos, in all three levels of his Emunah. And this, the Rebbe explains, is the meaning of Machzis HaShekel. Machzis HaShekel, there's a medrash which the Rebbe refers to, interestingly, as a Madne medrash, where it says that Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu a matbeah shel eish, a fiery coin, and he said to him, Zeh yitnu, kazeh yitnu, this is what type they should give. And what does that mean? The Rebbe explains that there's Isarusa de Litata and Isarusa de Leila. The Eibush is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, when there'll be Zeh yitnu, when a Jew has his Isarusa de Litata, when he gives from below, then he reaches the Matbeah Shel Eish, the coin of above, the fire, which is Kaifer Nafshei Seichem, the essence of his soul. A Jew gives from below, but how? With the Kayach of Kisisa of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu gives the Jew a power that when he connects himself from below, then he reaches the Kaifer Nafshei Seichem, he reaches the essence of his soul, the connection to Hatzmos Umos, Zeh yitnu. And this is the meaning of the idea of Machzis HaShekel, and this is like we're explaining with the idea of Emunah, that a Jew has his Sarusa L'tata. A Jew works with the Kayach of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who inspires him to do it. And a Jew works to give over from himself to the Eibishter, to give over from himself to the reality of the Lukus, despite where he is, from where he can realize and understand it and reach the idea of Emunah from above, and as a result, through the power of Moshe Rabbeinu, he reaches the very essence of who he is and what he's really about. And this is the idea, this is actually connected, although in the Maimer it doesn't say this directly, but the Rebbe explained, it was actually in the last Sicha that we heard from the Rebbe, was Parshas Vayakel, was Parshas Shkolim, and the Rebbe explains the idea of Machzis HaShekel, every person is a half. Both every Jew is a half, because in reality I'm only whole when I'm connected to another Jew. And every person is a half, because in reality my essence is not just me, I'm half of the reality, which is I'm one with the Eibishter. Machzis HaShekel is Zeh yitnu. When I give and I realize and I give from myself, then I'm connected with the reality that I'm not just myself, I'm a machzis in the reality of the fact that I'm one with Holocaust. And this, the Rebbe explains, is why it says in the Medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eibishter, what's going to happen with the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel in future generations? The Rebbe says, why specifically this mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel? Why does Moshe Rabbeinu ask about it? And the answer is because it's such an important thing. It's the essence and the basis of everything. It's the idea of Parshas HaKarbanis, of a person giving over from himself, giving over from his Nefesh Abamis, so that he can connect to Elokus. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu says, well, what's going to happen in future generations? And the Eibishter answered Moshe Rabbeinu, that's why I'm saying Kisisa in the future tense, because you will lift up. In other words, this idea of Machzis HaShekel, this mitzvah of Parshas HaKarbanis, of a person giving over from himself and becoming one with the Eibishter, one with the reality of Elokus, is something that never stops. Why? Because Kisisa, because you, Moshe Rabbeinu, are the one who lifts up the soul of a Jew, and there's a Ispashtusa, the Moshe Bechol Dara V'Dara. There's a Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, the Reish, the Nasi of the generation. And the Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation brings to this idea of Kisisa, that Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation lifts up the neshama of a Jew, so that he can be connected with the Eibishter, so that his connection should be not just in a way of Malik Kol Almin, in a proper way, but even in a way of Seviv Kol Almin, and even in a way of Atzmos Umos, that through Moshe Rabbeinu every Jew's connection is revealed in a way that he feels and he realizes and he connects in his essence, not just in his understanding, in his feeling, but in his essence, to the reality that a Yid is one with the Eibishter and everything, that there's nothing else but the Eibishter, kula kami kalachshiv, everything is nothing before him, before Atzmus and Eined Mulvade.